Welcome to reality, the greatest fight night to ever hit. The UFC is here. Marcin Tybura versus Sergey Spivak, the highly anticipated rematch. And it's time for me to give my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on this card. As always, the timestamps are in the description. Now, big fight night. Sergey Spivak, we've not seen him in quite some time since he's lost to Gane. That was a real bad loss that he took to Gane. Cannot believe anyone picked him to win that fight. I mean, my goodness, that was just a terrible pick. If you picked him to win that fight, you just didn't know. Now, I picked him to win that fight, but he didn't get it done, all right? Marcin Tybura, on the other hand, is on an uprise, earned his freedom last time, beating Tuivasa. He's been training in Poland, so we'll see how it is for Marcin Tybura. I personally think Marcin Tybura, we're going to see the best version of Marcin Tybura, a happy Marcin Tybura. Of course, you got to expect his training camp to have been a bit different for this one. You know, of course, he's not just training in the PI, not just using a battery pack. He's using his real, he's actually training on his own. So, left to his own devices. Let's get into this, guys. The first fight is going to be between Luciano versus Talita Alencar or Alencar. I don't know how you pronounce it, but this is the first fight that we're dealing with. Both women have similar records. I honestly have no idea who's going to win this fight. I'm going to go with Talita Alencar because she has the color photo. And, you know, she just has more experience under the UFC bright lights, whereas Stephanie, I'm seeing the black and white. And that tells me that she just got off the Contender Series. And, of course, they have similar records. This is just a terrible way to pick a fight. But we just don't know. We have no idea what's going to happen. Maybe Talita Alencar becomes the next big thing. Maybe she doesn't. We'll see. But I'm going to go with Talita Alencar. We're going on to the next one, all right? Let's get on to this one. This is actually a sick fight. I used to say that Jarno Errens was the pitter-pat guy on the feet, didn't really impose his will, but I think it was just because he was fighting. Who's that guy from France? I'm forgetting his name. The guy that, never puts himself in harm's way. Sort of has that drone style on the feet. I cannot believe I'm forgetting his name. Someone is definitely going to let me know. But then Jarno Errens had an absolute war with Steven Nugent, imposed his will, had a gritty battle with him. And so now I look at him as a actually entertaining striker. But the issue is that, he had a gritty scrap with Steven Nugent. And Nugent is pretty decent, but he's not Youssef Zalal decent. Youssef Zalal, in my opinion, is one of the most complete fighters that we have in the featherweight division outside the rankings, right? He's been incredibly inactive. We haven't really seen a lot of him, but he looked insanely good and well-rounded in his last fight. His striking looked elite, his grappling looked elite, his submission game looked elite, and we saw him just easily beat Billy Quarantillo, who myself and a lot of other people thought that Billy Quarantillo was going to be able to kind of, survive, bring him to deep waters, drag him into the pocket in the phone booth up against the fence and just overwhelm him. But Youssef Zalal looked powerful. He had snap at the end of his punches. He looked explosive. His jab looked real good. His kicks were pretty fast, and, of course, he had the threat of the takedown, got the submission. Honestly, Youssef Zalal looked like one of the best prospects in the UFC that night. So, pitch-perfect performance against Billy Quarantillo, who's more proven than Nugent, or war with Nugent. Youssef Zalal's last performance was well-rounded, and it was just about as good as it can get. I'm going to go with Youssef Zalal, all right? I know he's had a couple of losses throughout the years, but he's only fought twice throughout the years. Right? Youssef Zalal, I think that this is, the second time he's fighting this year? First time he's been active in quite some time, or at least active for him. So I'm going to go with him to win this fight. I think Jarno Errens is going to be a problem on the feet, but I think that Youssef Zalal's ability to get the takedown in this fight and his submission game is going to give Jarno Errens some issues. So, wow, I just realized they have the exact same record. Pretty crazy. Who has the reach advantage? Let's see. Yep, it's actually Jarno Errens who will have the reach advantage. He's got the height advantage as well. I think it's going to be competitive on the feet. I think that Jarno Errens is going to have some success, but I think Youssef Zalal is going to mix in the takedowns, and I think he's going to beat up Jarno Errens a little bit on the ground. So I'm going to go with Youssef Zalal by a decision or possibly a submission, but I'm going to pick Youssef Zalal by decision. I think it's going to be a competitive fight on the feet at first. As it progresses, I think Youssef Zalal is going to start to dominate, and I think he's going to push a pace on Jarno Errens. So Youssef Zalal, later rounds are going to be dominant. I think he takes this by decision, 30-27. Let's get on to the next one. Another interesting fight. Jhotata Diniz, former Glory kickboxer, versus Karl Williams, who we saw beat one of the Taffa brothers. I think it was Justin Taffa, had a lot of hype going into that. It was knocking a lot of people out. Knocked Parker Porter out, had a couple of highlight reel moments. And, Karl Williams has always kind of been under the radar because he's not a finisher. He doesn't finish people, and he doesn't get highlights. You don't really remember his performances. He's kind of like a young Bilal, right? But Karl Williams is well-rounded. He's kind of fast on the feet, but his takedown entries are very fast. And you look at Karl Williams, he's not that big for the heavyweight division, but he's lean. And how much do they have him listed when it comes to the weight? 235? He's about 235 pounds, similar body fat to like Stipe Miocic, you know what I mean? Sort of lean for this division. Jhotata Diniz, he's not one of these completely out of shape heavyweights, but he's not as lean. How much is he listed at? 250 pounds. He has more of like the average heavyweight, but Karl Williams really has a big advantage over most of his opponents because he's actually in decent shape. And that makes a huge difference because there's only like 10 people in this division that are in decent shape. And he's one of them. He's not very dangerous on the feet, but surviving moments against Justin Taffa. And I mean, Justin Taffa was landing huge body kicks on Karl Williams and getting really close to the mark and landed some big punches on him too. Karl Williams was able to stay safe, showed pretty good defensive ability, and the takedown entries are just really good for Karl Williams. Very fast with his takedown entries. And Jhotata Diniz, it took him a couple of rounds to get the KO in his last outing against Austin Lane, the former football player, got a lot of hype in the beginning of his career. Yeah, Jhotata Diniz did all right. He did all right in that fight, got the second round KO, but not as dominant as you would want it to be against a guy like Austin Lane, who's just not had a lot of success in his UFC career. And the takedown defense is still pretty unproven from Jhotata Diniz. And if it's taken you 2 rounds to knock out Austin Lane, yeah, you can KO Karl Williams, but will you do it quickly? Will you do it before he shoots his 3rd, 4th takedown? I don't know. I think that at heavyweight, when you have someone that's fast with their takedown entries, that is in decent shape, that can push a pace and shoot like 10 plus takedowns in a fight, I think I'm always going to side with one of these guys because, again, Jhotata Diniz, yeah, he's powerful on the feet, but he didn't have like the most shocking performance. It wasn't just utter dominance from the moment the fight started. He got the KO, he was the better striker, but like we're not just talking about Jhotata Diniz as like a future champion or someone that has tons of potential. I think Karl Williams is going to take him down. I don't think Karl Williams gets finished. I think he takes him down. I think he wins a dominant decision with his wrestling. Yeah, if he doesn't get KO'd early in this fight, he's going to win this fight, in my opinion, unless Jhotata Diniz shows up with some insane takedown defense that we didn't really know about, which could happen. I don't think he's winning. So I'm going to go with Karl Williams by a dominant decision utilizing the wrestling. Even though Taffa is like more out of shape than Jhotata Diniz, I think he's more dangerous, okay? But let's get on to the next one. Karol Rosa versus Pannie Kianzad. I'm going to go with Karol Rosa. I mean, Karol Rosa had one of the best fights I've ever seen this year. Well, not I've ever, but like one of the best fights this year was from Karol Rosa and Aldana, or maybe that was on UFC 296. It was either last December or it was this January. Either way, Karol Rosa and Irene Aldana had one of the best fights, WMMA fights ever. Solid fight, a war. Both of them landed like upwards of 170 significant strikes. And I got to go with Karol Rosa. There's a chance that she took a lot of damage and she's not going to be the same. There's a chance that if this turns into a scrap, then she's just, I don't know, not going to want to go to those dark places again, the deep waters. But I think that Karol Rosa showed that she can scrap. I think she showed that she can impose her will, and she showed insane toughness. And for WMMA, that's a lot. That means a lot. And I'm going to pick Karol Rosa based on that, how tough she looked in that fight, how much she was actually committing to her strikes and how willing she was to actually scrap. I don't know that much about Kianzad, but I'm not doubting Karol Rosa going into this one. I think Karol Rosa is going to win this by a TKO, all right? I think she's going to get confidence from that. So I'm going to go with Karol Rosa to win this fight. TKO or dominant decision on the feet. Let's get on to the next one. Another relatively new selection of fighters, I guess you'd say. I don't know why Charalampos is still in black and white. I'm pretty sure he had a UFC fight that he lost. He's a pretty good grappler. Toshiomi Kazama is an okay grappler. He has a judo background, but here's why I'm going to go with Charalampos. Because Toshiomi Kazama has been KO'd in the first round twice in a row, and that's not a good look, all right? It's not a good look. He got beat up by Garrett Armfield. He got knocked out in his next fight, or he got knocked out in his fight prior to that. I'm sorry, he got knocked out in his fight prior to that against Rinya. So he made it to two people's highlight reels, Rinya Nakamura and Garrett Armfield. He's pretty good. He's pretty all right. He's scrappy on the feet, but he's been knocked out twice. He's not got himself a good UFC win yet. And I just think I'm going to have to go with Charalampos, who did lose his UFC debut, but at least had a winning round where he won the second round, getting some control time. I think he's going to be a lot bigger in the cage than Toshiomi, who, in my opinion, seems to be a little bit weak. So I'm going to go with Charalampos by decision. All right, we don't really know too much about him, but I think that he showcased that he's got some grappling. He's got an ability to get a takedown, and I think he's going to have the power advantage too. So let's get on to the next one. Yana Santos versus Chelsea Chandler. Sort of like the Peter Yan and Corey Sandhagen of WMMA a little bit. I think we're in for a striker's treat. A couple of tough cookies. Chelsea Chandler kind of throws leather like Michael Chandler. And, of course, Yana Santos kind of has that kickboxing, well-rounded style like a Peter Yan. So you got to ask yourself, are you going with the Corey Sandhagen with Chelsea Chandler power, or are you going with the Peter Yan with Yana Santos footwork and agility? All right. Now, I'm honestly just waffling. 14-8. That's a pretty ugly record. 6-2. That's a prettier record. So I'm going to go with Chelsea Chandler to get this one done. All right. I'm going to go with Chelsea Chandler. I just believe in Chelsea Chandler the same way I believe in Tallulah. All right. I believe in Chelsea Chandler. I think she's going to get it done. I think she's going to impose her will. And we're going to be chanting, I believe in Chandler during the fight. So, yeah, I'm going with Chelsea Chandler. I just believe in the fact that she's going to win this fight. Just a really in-depth breakdown on Chelsea Chandler. I believe in Chandler. All right, we're going on to the next one. Damon Jackson, the hairline, versus Chepe Mariscal. I know some people were cracking jokes on my hairline, but I think Damon Jackson has earned the nickname more than me. The hairline himself. I'm going with Chepe Mariscal. I think this is a nightmare matchup for Damon Jackson. I'm going to go with Chepe Mariscal. All right, Chepe Mariscal, win over Morgan Charrier, win over Trevor Peek. This dude is a beast. Chepe Mariscal is an absolute beast. Win over Jack Jenkins. Every single one of those opponents is tough. They're well-rounded, too. Jack Jenkins is tough, all right? And he's a solid striker. Morgan Charrier is tough. He's fast on the feet, and he's well-rounded. He's a good grappler. He's got good takedown defense. He's got good takedowns. And, of course, Trevor Peek is just an absolute marauder, and he's just a sturdy guy, right? He's tough to out-grapple. Chepe Mariscal's got an insane gas tank. He just edged out his last win, by the way. It was a very close fight with Morgan Charrier, but I think Charrier beats Damon Jackson pretty easily as well. Both of those guys were able to push a pace. Chepe Mariscal doesn't get tired. He has tons of power. He's well-rounded. He's got good takedowns. He's got a good team. He trains at altitude, trains with Justin Gaethje. Now, Damon Jackson, coming off of a win, that split decision, or I don't know if it was a split decision, but it was a close decision against Alexander Hernandez, who I thought was a couple of adjustments away, just a few punches of actually committing to his strikes away from beating Damon Jackson. I picked him to win. I think that if Hernandez were to have just pushed forward a little bit more and let his hands go a little bit more, he could have easily won that. He didn't. Damon Jackson kind of picked him apart at range. The last time Damon Jackson fought someone that was similar to Chepe Mariscal, or at least with a similar build, with similar ability to commit to punches, he got knocked out against Dan Ige. All right. And the guys that Damon Jackson is beating, like we're talking Pat Sabatini, who's sort of one-dimensional, who's too small for the division, who's not that fast and that dangerous on the feet. You know, and he's also getting beat by Billy Quarantillo, who's not got a lot of power. Chepe Mariscal has cardio. He's got grappling. He's got power. He can impose his will. And I think this is a really bad matchup for Damon Jackson, who's not that sturdy with the way he stands. He's not very fast. He's not very dangerous. He's not the best grappler. I think this is going to be an easy fight for Chepe Mariscal. I'm going to pick Chepe Mariscal to win this by first round KO. All right, first round KO, overhand. All right, I think it's going to be a big, gnarly overhand over the top. And Chepe's going to get his 4th win over a decent opponent. And you know what? I think this is a good enough win to have either one of those dark horse matchups where the winner gets to be ranked, or just give him a ranked opponent, you know? So, yeah, I think Chepe's going to win this pretty easily, first round KO. On to the next one, and there's a reason why we can't pull up the stats right here, and that is because Danny Barlow has a new opponent, and they don't have, I guess, the regular stats of him yet for the UFC website. So I think Danny Barlow is going to crush Nikolay Veretennikov, okay? I think he's going to crush him. Danny Barlow is going to have every advantage. He's got the reach advantage. He's got the speed advantage. He's got the height advantage. He's got the striking advantage, and he's pretty decent when it comes to his ability to keep distance. And I think that's going to be big for Danny Barlow when it comes to keeping his back off the fence and disengaging in the grappling exchanges, because Nikolay is taking this on short notice. It was supposed to be Errens Medic, which was a sick matchup. That was the matchup that we were all looking forward to. Errens Medic, with the lightweight skill, has moved up, and now he's sort of destroying people in his path and knocking people out and beating heavy punchers as well. So that would have been an amazing fight. And now it's a guy filling in on short notice that might be looking to take this fight to the ground if he starts to get his ass kicked. And I don't know if he's going to have the gas tank to push a pace in the grappling. And I also don't think he's going to knock out Danny Barlow, who, again, has good distance management, is very fast. Danny Barlow had an amazing UFC debut against Quinlan, and there were so many combinations that he landed on Quinlan that would have put most people out before he actually stopped him in the 3rd round. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Danny Barlow by KO. I think he's going to knock out Nikolay in the 2nd round. Accumulation of damage. Nikolay is going to slow down, or Nikolay, my bad. That's not even a V. I see it's a Y. I think he's going to knock him out in the 2nd round. All right, I think he's going to slow down, and again, taking it on short notice, not an ideal thing when you're going in there to face one of the most dangerous striking prospects who's had a full camp. So this is a pretty easy fight to pick. Danny Barlow by 2nd round TKO. Another fight, which has a late notice, short notice replacement, is Chris Gutierrez, who was supposed to fight one of the Bashrap bros, and now he's fighting Quang Le. I honestly don't know anything about Quang Le, but I see that he is the favorite on the UFC website. That has to be wrong. That has to be a glitch. Chris Gutierrez is the right pick, unless I'm literally just missing that Quang Le is, dude, bro, you missed out big time. Quang Le is literally the fucking triple-time Olympic champion, man. Quang Le won the Worlds, he won the NCAA tournament, and he even won gold 5 years in a row, man. Like, maybe I missed it, but I don't think these odds are accurate. I think Chris Gutierrez is probably the real favorite. Now, we know Gutierrez can't stop a takedown. All I know about Quang Le, and I swear, we're basically turning this guy into the most famous. He's the next Shamil Gaziev, basically. I mean, Quang Le may honestly become a legend. We never know. But the only thing I know is that he's got a bunch of submissions, all right? And he's also got a bunch of KOs recently. And as his opponents have gotten better, he's been knocking them out. Earlier on, when he was fighting the lower guys, the guys with the 4-10 records or whatever, he was submitting them. Now he's knocking them out. And I know that we don't really know this, but sometimes that means that, yeah, their takedowns, they stop working, or they stop feeling confident when they're going up in competition and they're grappling, and they start to strike a little bit. And so I think there's a chance he's going to go out there and he's obviously got to shoot takedowns on Chris Gutierrez. Like, if he doesn't, then he's a fool. But Song Yadong is taking down Chris Gutierrez and keeping him down. But it's Song Yadong, man. Song Yadong is very strong. He's fast. He's explosive. He's trained with a bunch of high-level wrestlers for a long time. I think the Bastrop Bros could have been a decent matchup against Gutierrez. I think I honestly would have picked Gutierrez anyway, but yeah, if I would have picked Gutierrez against one of the Bastrop Bros, I'm probably going to pick him against Quang Le. All right, Quang Le, he has grappling, he has submissions, but unless this guy goes out there with a double leg like Song Yadong, I don't think he's going to win. I think it's a short notice fight. He took this like a few days ago or today. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all you need right there, is he's taking this on short notice. And Chris Gutierrez has had a full training camp to prepare for a grappler. So Chris Gutierrez is preparing for one of the Bastrop Bros. He knows that the Bastrop Bros are going to try to take him down. And now he's facing a guy like Quang Le, who's probably honestly more dangerous than the Bastrop Bros. He probably imposes will a little bit better on the feet and actually let his hands go and actually throw with bad intentions. But will the grappling be as solid as it needs to be? And will he be able to keep up a pace in the grappling? I don't think so. I think Chris Gutierrez is going to win an easy decision, or maybe even get a finish. It honestly would be a bad look if Gutierrez doesn't get a finish in this one, because Quang Le will stand with him in some moments on the feet. But I'm going to go with Chris Gutierrez by decision. All right, I think there is going to be the threat of the takedown. I think Quang Le is going to be shooting and making it difficult for Chris Gutierrez to try to find his rhythm. And also, we kind of know Gutierrez is a bit of a pitter-patter at range guy. He's on his bike. He's striking on the back foot. He's throwing little calf kicks and little teep kicks. And he's not that powerful. He doesn't have a style that makes you believe that he can knock people out that often. So I'll go with Chris Gutierrez. He makes it really difficult for his opponents to actually land on him. Again, he's always moving backwards. He's throwing kicks to just keep you away from him rather than to do a lot of damage. And he's really good at putting up points. So Chris Gutierrez, I think he's going to put up a bunch of points, man. I think he's going to, maybe a 70-point game for Chris Gutierrez. Maybe he's breaking records, but certainly I don't think he's doing a ton of damage with it. So Quang Le is undefeated, by the way, but I'm going with Chris Gutierrez. And of course, main event, Marcin Tybura versus Sergey Spivak, part 2. Both guys have changed a lot since their first fight. Marcin Tybura has gotten leaner, and Sergey Spivak has put on more mass. I don't think he's gotten fatter, but he's just put on more mass to become a bigger guy. So what are they listed at for weight? 247 for Tybura and 260 for Spivak. 6'3" for both of them. Yeah, Marcin Tybura is always kind of, he stood in front of Tom Aspinall and looked to be basically a similar height, which is pretty crazy. He is a big heavyweight. He's got a very look like if you were to look at him for a second, you'd be like, oh, he's just a fat heavyweight, but he's got like these skinny legs. But he's also got a decent gas tank, and I think that's because he doesn't have a lot of weight on him. He doesn't have a lot of unnecessary weight on him. You know what I mean? Marcin Tybura is strong, but he doesn't have that unnecessary weight. And we know Marcin Tybura won the first one. He won by decision. I'm going to pick Marcin Tybura again. Sergey Spivak is a real heavyweight, by the way. Both of these guys are real heavyweights. They're not NPCs. Sergey has proven that with his finishes, with his submissions, which is great. But Marcin Tybura got himself a rear naked choke over Tai Tuivasa in his last outing, which is also big. I mean, he's back in Poland. He's doing his thing. He's training hard. And he even rocked up to that fight with a bit of a goofy haircut. And right off the bat, you knew that there was something going on. Wait a second. This guy's rocking up with a goofy haircut. He's showing some character. He's showing some personality. And I mean, like, what the fuck is this breakdown? This honestly deserves a dark room. I'm going to go with Marcin Tybura. I think Marcin Tybura, he's got that ability to push pace. He's very easy to underestimate because, you go from fighting Cyril Gane, who is an expert on the feet. Gane's way more athletic than basically all but a couple of fighters in that division. He's fast and agile enough to knee you in the midsection when you try to get a hold of him and you kind of oaf into range. But Marcin Tybura is one of those guys where Spivak, he's fought him before, and he probably thinks he's gotten a lot better because Tybura's older than him, and Spivak can say, I wasn't in my prime, but it was actually Tybura that was getting the takedowns. It was Tybura in the third and first round that actually shot in, and it wasn't it was like a Curtis Blades takedown, very plotty. The first takedown, I believe, was a trip, actually. It was actually a pretty slick takedown. The third round one was very plotty. Shot in, drove him to the fence, kind of dunked him on his backside, and was able to get top control. And you look at Sergey Spivak as the grappler. You look at Sergey Spivak as, this is the guy that he's got the judo tosses, and he judo tosses you once, and he's putting you into a head and arm lock, like he's putting you into a Ben Askren bulldog choke. That's not necessarily the case when he's fighting a guy like Marcin Tybura, who's an underrated grappler. We just saw another example of Marcin Tybura submitting Tai Tuivasa with ease. I mean, he submitted him easier than Volkov. And I know that, again, Volkov's a striker, a different style. But still, Marcin Tybura is still dangerous on the ground. He's finished people on the ground throughout his career. He has had those ground and pound finishes. And he can push a pace. Marcin Tybura is usually the guy that beats people because they tire out before him. And as I said, he's got this weird, unassuming look to where you think you're going to go in there and just have some pitter-pat fight in a clinch and have this guy gas out like Shamil Gaziev. But no, Marcin Tybura is slow. He's not very dangerous on the feet, but he'll catch you with some he'll catch you with some shots, man. He'll catch you with some hooks. All right. They're not very big hooks, but he'll catch you with some hooks. And he doesn't have to worry about some guy blitzkrieging him like Tom Aspinall, just freaking elbowing him in the nose and then immediately after chucking a big 1-2 at him and hitting him with a clobbering right hand and a big Shelly after that. He doesn't have to worry about a big Shelly because what's going to happen on the ground is Sergey Spivak takes him down. I actually think Tybura is going to be one of the guys with a gas tank that's able to get out of those bad positions. So I'm going to go with Tybura to win this fight. It's a 5-rounder. I actually think Tybura is either going to win this. You know what? I'm going to go with Tybura. And I'm going to go with Tybura by a TKO on the ground in round 3. I think Sergey Spivak is going to get TKO'd. I think he's going to win the first round. He's going to be going in here in his prime. He's going to be thinking, I don't know how Sergey Spivak sounds, but he's going to be thinking, I'll take this guy out, bro. And I think Tybura is going to say, he's going to be smirking. Tybura's going to have that Marcin Tybura smile smirk. And he's going to say, bring it on, man, bring it on. And I just think that, dude, Tybura is going to fucking unassume his way to a freaking TKO, round 3. All right? Tybura is going to make Spivak think that, he's some old man who's not dangerous. And Spivak, he's never been an NPC at the Apex. He doesn't know about that. It's easy to look at Tybura as a guy that doesn't have an aura. But Spivak's going in there to fight a guy that beat him with the NPC style where, he shot the takedown and he waited 5 minutes. But now Tybura is still that guy, but I feel like he was never really meant for the Apex, Tybura. Tybura is one of those guys that was truly able to impose his will. And he's got a great gas tank. just repeating the same shit. But you get my point, dude. Tybura's got a better gas tank. Tybura is a great grappler. And his gas tank allows him to survive bad positions. And he's got a tricky style on the feet. Listen, Spivak is not a good striker. His hands, they're not fast. I actually think Tybura is trickier. I think Tybura's got some weird... I talked about this in the build-up to his Aspinall fight, but he's got a pretty decent check hook. He's got a decent check hook to keep you honest. And he's leaner than he was back then. And maybe that's going to make it harder for him to get a takedown on a bigger Sergey Spivak this time. But I think he's going to be more athletic. I think he's going to be more battle-tested. And I think the confidence that he's going to gain from getting out of that Apex and being able to train in Poland and sort of, train with a better team, most likely, I think it's going to lead to a crafty win. I think Tybura wins. All right? And this has everything to do with their first fight and everything to do with their last performance. Again, I know that Gon is a different beast, but Marcin Tybura toasted Tai Tuivasa. And if, there's just nothing dangerous on the feet for him in this fight. Nothing dangerous for him on the feet. I was thinking he just got KO'd by Aspinall. He's about to get KO'd by Tuivasa. No. Sergey Spivak, I'm sorry, dude. He's going down. He's going to win the first round. This is a 5-rounder. He's going to win the first round. He's going to lose the second. He's going to get TKO'd in the third on the ground. Marcin Tybura style. dragging people into deep waters. He's getting it done. He's TKO'd a lot of people. He's finished a lot of people in the heavyweight division. And not only NPCs, like he's actually getting guys out of there that are dangerous quite often. And I just don't think Spivak has the gas tank. All right. So, yeah, I'm going with Tybura. I think he's going to get the second win over Spivak. And I think he's going to get a TKO. So let me know what you guys think. Until next time.